So I got scammed for £2,000. I'm not making this up. This is real. This is me. This is my story. I got scammed last year. I haven't talked about it for 9 months. I want to talk about it today, finally, and share how it happened and what happened afterwards. It sucks. It's horrible, and strap in because this one is an interesting story that could happen to anybody. It happened to me, and I think I'm pretty savvy about this. So it could definitely happen to you. So let's see how I got scammed for £2,000. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to another Precious Metal Ramble where we shoot the breeze about all things precious and shiny. We're going to do a bit of a diversion today though. As I said in the intro, I want to tell you my story about how I fell victim to a card payment processing or payment push notification scam. I got taken for £2,000 by some scammers. It bloody sucked, let me tell you. And I haven't talked about this to date publicly. I've talked about it with friends and family. But I haven't talked about it to date publicly for a number of reasons. Been pretty busy, but also there is an element of it being quite embarrassing to admit that I fell victim to one of these scams. I don't like to sort of think that I'm better than everybody else when it comes to this, because quite patently I'm not, and I fell victim to one of these scams. But I thought that I was pretty savvy about the world of scams and scamming and falling victim to these kind of things. Yet the right circumstances hit. I'll tell you all about them in this story, but I was hook, line and sinker. I was completely down the rabbit hole, and it was really scary, and it made me feel really bad afterwards. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't talked about it for, gosh, what are we in now, like 10 months since it happened. It was Christmas last year. So yeah, it's horrible. It really is. And that really, the sort of victimhood that you feel from it is very debilitating. And it actually in part played a reason why I had some hiatus and time off from Backyard Bullion-ing, if that's even a phrase, last January. I needed just some time to kind of recover from it, really, because it really was horrible, and I don't like the way it made me feel. And I've learned a lot from it. Now, it's not precious metal related. I didn't get scammed for precious metals. I didn't, have somebody sell me a bunch of crap that I don't want. Instead, it was a payment push scam. So I'll tell you more about it when I get into the story in full, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with precious metals. So if you're a regular viewer and you're just thinking about precious metals and scams, please bear with me, because this is, I think, really important to share, because it's not just payment push scams that can happen. It can happen for precious metal buying, it can happen for anything, and it's scary. And I hope that this story helps people, A, avoid being scammed if they've ever had that kind of vulnerability, or second, if you have been scammed, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to process it. It's okay to be a victim of it. Like, it's horrible. It really is, but it's okay to talk about it. As I said, I haven't talked about it publicly since it happened, and this is the first time doing it, so we'll just see how it goes. Anyway, into the story in just a moment, but I will ask for you all to share your thoughts and comments down in the comment section on your experiences with this kind of situation. Have you ever been scammed? Have you ever fallen victim to it? Do you think, maybe like I did, maybe naively, that you're above being scammed because you're really knowledgeable about this? I kind of felt like I was, and yet I found myself £2,000 lighter in my bank account because somebody took advantage of me. So let me know down in the comments what you've got to say. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up button to share this video through the algorithm and YouTube, because I think it's really important. Like I said, I want to help people avoid being scammed in the first place, and I want to help people who have been scammed feel a bit better about their situations. So, in summary, I'm going to go through the story about how I was scammed, what they did, what they said, not exact scripts and things, but how I kind of fell victim to it, I suppose, the circumstances around that. I then want to tell you about what I did immediately after I realized I was being scammed and had lost money, and what I did with my bank and what my bank then did afterwards, and how I got my money back. The happy ending to the story is that I was made whole in this whole situation, which is very fortunate. At the time, there was no guarantee of that, and it sucked to not know. So yeah, lots to get through. Right, where do we start then? I'll bring you back to a cold, crisp, sunny 23rd of December. I can't remember what day of the week it was. Maybe it was a Friday. I can't remember. But anyway, it was the 23rd of December, just before Christmas. And I was tasked to go out and do the Christmas shopping, the food shop. So I went out to our local supermarket. and I was doing all the Christmas shopping, and I was trying to get everything done. It was, busy supermarket, 23rd December, everyone was there, and I was just trying to get everything I needed. And my phone rings, and it's flashed up on my phone from my bank, Chase Banking. So this number there, spoofed immediately. I didn't know it was spoofed, I thought it was Chase. So I answered the phone. And a very posh English-sounding gentleman answered the phone. Well, I answered the phone. He was on the other end of the phone, and he basically said my name. He knew my name. He said, "Hello, we believe that your card has been stolen, or your details have been stolen." Because for those that don't know, Chase you do have a physical card as well, but you also have a digital version of it through the app. And so immediately I was like, "Oh God, okay, right. Well, we have to sort this." So he had me hook, line, and sinker straight away. And then he started, going through immediately. He was like, and he just basically said, "Can I just take you quickly through security?" And, he basically faked that, I guess, because he was just asking for things that he kind of knew already, or for very simple things. He was like, "Can you just confirm your name?" Didn't ask for my address, and just, "Can you confirm the approximate balance on the account?" And, you have an idea of what's in there and everything. So and then he was like, "Right, just so that," this is the thing that got me down the rabbit hole. He said, "Just so you know that I'm genuine." So he was saying that he's genuine. He said, "I've just sent a little code to your phone, so you know right now it's all genuine." And right there and then in that moment, a text message appeared on my phone, and it was from Chase Banking, and it said your PIN number, or not PIN number, but your code is a four-digit number. He didn't ask for the code. He just said, "I've just sent you a code. That's your reference number for this. You know it's from me." And immediately in my brain, that's like, great. Okay, well, I must be talking with Chase, because the phone has come up saying Chase Bank, and the text has come through straight away from Chase Bank in the same chain of messages even as some of the other bits from Chase Bank. And I'll tell you why that's happened at some point in this story. Well, actually, I'll tell you for now exactly how I think that's happened. So with Chase Banking, when you register and sign up on the app, you put your phone number into it, and then you have to confirm that phone number through that. And what I think happened is that he's set up the app on a spoof phone. He's then installed it, and then he's put my phone number through there. And that has then generated this text message, which has gone to my phone number. Of course, his phone doesn't have my phone number in it. And then he would use that number to set up the app on his phone. Of course, he didn't ask for that. That wasn't his scam. And I didn't have, the clarity to look at it in that moment, because the panic had set in. He had already weaved that lie and weaved that social engineering to hook me in. So that was the first sort of thing that got me really down the rabbit hole. And then he was scaring me with all these things, saying, your card has got all of these different payments on. Did you spend £2,500 on eBay? Did you sign up for was it an Audi or a BMW? He was like, have you bought an Audi RX-8 or something, or rented one recently? We've got a charge here for £10,000. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, Jesus Christ, this is awful. This is really bad. Now, I will just sort of digress on my tangential ramble here to say, first up, that there's obviously something that has happened here. So this wasn't a scam out of the blue, because the person who was scamming me had some of my details. So it's come to light to me I don't know what the source was, but Chase has told me this as part of the whole investigating thing, that my details were compromised somewhere from a merchant somewhere. So we use our cards to buy things from lots of different places all around the internet, and most of them are all fine and above board, but somewhere, somehow, one of the merchants that I've purchased something through at some point in the past has either been hacked, or has had an unscrupulous employee steal, or they have flat out just sold the data of all of that information to the dark web or the black market. It's more likely that it's been a hack or a vulnerability in their own platform to get that data. And basically all the scammers needed was my card details, the 16-digit number, and I believe they had the expiry date of it. They didn't have anything else. That's all they had. So it was then, how did they get their money out of me? How did I lose money from this? Because at the moment, they're just scaring the shit out of me, and that's all that's really happening. So basically then what they did was they drew me down the rabbit hole further. They went on the phone with me for I was in the car park of this supermarket. I'd left my trolley, which is hilarious in its own right, because I hadn't paid for my shopping yet. I was all flustered about this. So I went up to the customer service desk of the shop and I said, sorry, I've got a really important phone call. I just have to take Ryan. Can I leave my trolley here? I'll come back and get it a little bit later. And the hilarious thing was about an hour and a half later when I'd finished my phone calls and all of the things that I was doing, I went back in because I still needed the Christmas shopping. Went back in and went back to the desk and said, any sign of my trolley? And she said, oh, somebody just came in and took your trolley and walked out with it. I'm like, oh, I hadn't paid for it. And she was like, oh, well, somebody's just stolen all your shopping. I said, well, I hadn't paid for it, so they haven't stolen it from me. They've stolen it from you. Anyway, that's a story for another time. It's hilarious that I got scammed for £2,000 and someone stole all my bloody shopping. So I had to go back through the supermarket and do it all again, which was delightfully crap and fun, let me tell you. Anyway, I digress. So how did they get the money out of me? So they were scaring the living crap out of me for all this time about all of these pre-authorized payments, they called it. So they were saying that the scammers had my bank details, they had everything they needed to put what they called pre-authorized payments, and they said that there were a bunch of payments for £500 each at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think on tomorrow morning or something. And they said that the scammers would do that such that the notifications would come through on my phone in the middle of the night when I was asleep, and then they would just be pushed through and I wouldn't be able to stop them, basically, is the plan. Or he was like, because they're pre-authorized, they would just come out of your account at that time, and because you'd be asleep at the time, you wouldn't be able to cancel them or something. So that was really scary. And then this is where he hook, lined and sinkered me. So he said, but don't worry, we're here to help you. He said to me he's raised a reference number with the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and the various, there's an action fraud, that was it. And he gave me a reference number. He gave me a reference number beginning with FCA, and his whole demeanor, his whole language style was very posh English. He sounded exactly like you would expect to find somebody from one of these types of institutions who works in an anti-fraud. He was, really, really good at his job in terms of defrauding me out of that. And it's called social engineering. That is something that I have researched since having been scammed by this person. And it really, really is scary how I was properly down the rabbit hole with this, and really so much so, and this is where we get to how and where I lost my money. So he then said that the only way that they could unauthorize these payments would be for me to push them through. And I know some of you are probably cringing right now, but let me tell you, I'm down that rabbit hole. I am down that hole and I'm ready to just do whatever he says. He says, approve the payments through your app, and then once that's done, they will refund it. So I got 4 notifications come through on my phone for £500 each. And you get a little notification on your app that says approve. So I approved them all. And then they're all very quick, within a couple of, literally 10 seconds of each other. And then I said, okay, those are done. And he knew exactly how much was in my account at this point because I told him. Retrospectively, he didn't have access to my accounts. He didn't know, but I had about £2,200. And I then said to him, so, okay, well, they're all done now, so how do we get that money back? Because now my balance is £2,000 lighter. And then he said, and this is where things start to take a bit of a darker turn. He says, why did you approve them? And I went, sorry, you told me to that. You told me that I had to approve them and then you were going to, refund them. And I'd been through this with him 4 times about the process because I was maybe a little bit skeptical at first, but he'd reassured me, and anyway, so then I was a bit worried, and I was like, hang on, no, but that's not what you told me. And I got worried, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't know if you're trying to just lighten the mood or joke with me, but that doesn't sound right. Can I speak with your manager? And he said, sure, I'll just hand you to my manager now. And he just handed the phone to himself. And I said, no, but you're the same person. And then he said to me, oh, I have got an identical twin that I work with, and we sit next to each other at work. And then I hung up the phone because I knew at that moment that I'd been scammed £2,000. And when I looked at my bank account, I'd bought £2,000 worth of vouchers, e-vouchers, online vouchers to be used in shops online. And I felt shit, let me tell you. So I really did. My heart sank, get that pit in your stomach. It was horrible. So I immediately rang Chase, and this is where I want to, I've done a lot of anti-banking stuff on this channel before. I've talked about how banks are crap and shit and blah, blah, blah. Not this bank. Chase was great. I rang Chase immediately. And I got through very quickly, which is very important. And the wonderful lady that I spoke to I was by this point pretty emotional, pretty, scared, worried. She immediately cancelled the card. She reassured me. She said she logged it straight away as fraud, as like a scam essentially. And then she advised me straight away, because I was like, how do I get my money back? How do I? It's not life-changing sums of money, but you feel shit nevertheless. She said straight away, what you need to do right now is go and phone the company that you bought the vouchers from. Give them a call. They might be able to stop the vouchers being used. So I did. So I hung up the phone with Chase Bank. Everything I'd needed to be done with Chase Bank had been done already by that time. It was a very quick process just to get that party started. I then rang the voucher company, and I found out that £1,000 of it, I think at the time, had already been spent buying, of all things, other vouchers with John Lewis, big department store, home brand here in the UK. The other 1,000 hadn't been converted yet, so the wonderful lady at this voucher company immediately put a stop on it, and within 24 hours I had that money back, so I had £1,000 back in my account. It was great. So the fast action there of both the bank, myself, and then the company, the voucher company, was great. Okay, fantastic. So then I started to try and track down John Lewis, and fortunately the voucher company that the scammers had used to buy the vouchers gave me the voucher numbers of the John Lewis cards, the voucher cards. And I actually tried to go and spend those vouchers myself, but I couldn't because I didn't have the associated email address with them, because the scammer had used a different email address. So I rang John Lewis up and I tried to explain the situation. And unfortunately, by the time I'd got through to somebody at John Lewis, they'd bought an iPhone 13 or 14 or whatever it was, £1,000 iPhone. And I said to John Lewis, has it been dispatched yet? Because this is just, and the lady that I spoke to, John Lewis, was great. And she was like, yeah, unfortunately, it has been dispatched. And that's, I suppose, something that's worked against us in our favour, that John Lewis is such a bloody good company that they dispatch things within like an hour of the order being placed. So we couldn't do it, but they gave me their reference numbers. They referred it to their internal fraud teams. They gave me reference numbers to pass on to Action Fraud and to the police here in the United Kingdom. And that's where I went next. So I contacted Action Fraud. I contacted the police, rang 101, which is the non-emergency number in the UK, reported all of that, got the crime numbers, got everything I needed from that. And then I had this sort of moment. It's like I'm alone in a car park and I've done all of these things and I've made a mistake. I've lost £2,000. I, at that moment, didn't know that the other 1,000 was coming back from the voucher company. I've lost £2,000. God, what am I going to do? And there's part of you that doesn't want to tell anyone. So even in that moment in that car park, I just was like, I have to tell my wife. I have to tell Mrs. Backyard Bullion. I don't want to. I feel shit about it. But the lady at Chase had done a really good thing. She'd said a really nice thing. She'd said, you're a victim, she said. You've fallen victim to a criminal. They've done you dirty, basically. They've really messed you up. And they have, because it was shit. And they said, don't let the victimhood win over you. Don't let the scammers beat you because you feel bad about yourself. And as I said at the start of the video, I felt like I was a really savvy person when it comes to these kind of things. And I still think I'm pretty savvy about things. I'm certainly more savvy than I was. But yeah, it sucked. So I told Mrs. Backyard Bullion, and she was great about it. She was fine. Of course she was fine. She's incredible. All my friends and family were fine about it. I wanted to then immediately go and tell relatives that may be more vulnerable than me that these things happen, and my story. So I started telling a few friends and family that. But it sucked, it really did. And you feel like a victim, you feel taken advantage of. And the social engineering side of things, look up that phrase on Google, it's horrible. Like, I just was completely convinced. I can't explain it, how convinced I was in that moment. So we moan and we complain a lot about banks, and I realise now I've talked for nearly 19 minutes on this, so I'm going to start wrapping it up, I think, because otherwise I can bore you all to death. Basically, the bank was great. The bank did their little investigation. It took about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, because over Christmas, so it was about middle of January. I got a call from somebody at Chase Bank, and they were going through everything. They explained their sort of thoughts, and they said a few things that were really interesting. They said, because of my actions that I took immediately after the scam, and contacting the voucher companies, and contacting John Lewis to try and stop that one, and getting reference numbers and addresses of where scammers, well, I didn't get the address, but I got the reference number that they could then get from Action Fraud. They shared it with Action Fraud, basically. They said that was all very much in my favor as to the fact that it was going to be refunded. And the lady didn't bury the lead either. She said straight up, she was like, right, just want you to know straight away, you're going to get your £1,000 back. Okay, brilliant. And then she told me why, and she was like, you did a lot there to help. And she saw the records that I had shared through my phone about the spoofed number, about the text message, about all these other things. And the fact that, they had my details, they had the card details. It wasn't just some silly investment scam that I thought I was going to get rich quick on. This was a pure, vilified scammer taking advantage of somebody in a moment of crisis, because they'd caused that crisis. They'd engineered that crisis. It sucked. It was shit. Anyway, so a happy ending in the end, but it's hard to talk about. And I feel bad about it still to this day. Like, I shouldn't, but I do, because I try very hard on my channel to be as open and honest about the good and the bad, and I haven't talked about it for 9 months, and I now have. So I feel like I've got it off my chest, which is nice. And I just want to say that it's okay. If you get scammed, it'll be okay. I was fortunate that it was a low amount, and it wasn't life-changing sums of money, but even in those situations, life goes on. It'll be all right. And just talk to people about it. Don't let it get you. Don't let them win, as the bank lady said. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So be careful. Talk to someone. If you're in a situation like that, if Mrs. Backyard Bullion had been with me, it wouldn't have happened. She'd have told me to just disconnect. But I was hook, line and sinker. I was on my own. I was in a bad state of affairs. So it sucks. Anyway, thank you all to my ramblers for watching to the back end. To the Cool Kids Club, I say thank you. You guys rock. We'll see you on the next one. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.